Now, a lot of you guys on the channel say that I don't review enough indoors, which is why I have an indoor review for you today, and it also happens to be my personal favorite indoor boot by quite a large margin, the $140 Nike React Gato that I have here in the latest blue and Volt yellow colorway. Now, the reason why I've never been a huge fan of indoor boots is because often they can be very watered down variations of what we get in terms of actual studded football boots. But in the case of the React Gato, not only is this different from other indoor boots in a lot of different ways, it features some proprietary technologies from the Nike brand that you can get only on this particular boot. And honestly, quite frankly, I'm really hoping some of these technologies make their way onto actual football boots, hopefully in the near future. I'm gonna explain which ones those are and why I think this is such a great pair of football boots in today's video, including how they fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around, watch the entire review. And if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen, or you can click the first link down below. That's gonna take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes to pick these up below their normal $140 retail price. By the way, if you guys do enjoy the indoor and turf boot reviews on the channel and want to see more, don't forget to support this one with a like. And if you're not subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button for weekly videos on everything football boots and indoors. Very quickly, just to go over the looks and the colorway, I happen to really like the way that these look. I think the combination of blue and neon yellow is always a good one. Some absolute classic football boots have that exact same color combo, but this one in particular, on the box, it's listed as racer blue and Volt yellow. This, I would say, is more of a true racer blue, which, as you can see, is kind of more of a royal blue, where the actual Flyknit part, as well as the area across the top of the foot, that's more of a navy blue, at least in my opinion. Either way, it looks quite good, and of course it makes the Volt yellow accents you have throughout the boot pop really nicely. I also like the broken up edge to the Nike swoosh in embroidery. I think that's a really nice detail. I'm just a big fan of how this boot looks in general. And then as far as the outsole is concerned, it's a white outsole or white midsole with a translucent outsole, and then all of these little pods, which we'll talk about in just a second, are Volt yellow in color. All in all, really good looking colorway. Now, from a tech perspective, there are a number of highlight features with the React Gato, but there is one feature in particular that really stands out, and for me, makes this one of, if not the best indoor boots on the market, and that's the upper, which is made out of a Flyknit material. Nothing new from Nike. You can even see the normal Flyknit logo in the form of branding there on the one non-Flyknit part of the boot, ironically, which is kind of funny. Either way, the Flyknit itself is completely different from any other football boot Nike currently makes. It's a Flyknit material with Kevlar as a reinforcement yarn. So somewhere in this, it's not exactly well explained, there's Kevlar as a reinforcement. And you can see it leads to some pretty significant texturing. You might even say this looks like the same honeycomb pattern that we had on the NikeSkin upper found on the OG Nike Hypervenom Phantom 1, which I think goes down in history as one of the best synthetic uppers of all time. That is by far the closest comparison that I can make to this particular upper, but it feels more structurally sound than that, meaning that when you put them on, it's still super soft, kind of that signature sock-like sensation that Phantom 1 NikeSkin upper had, but when you start running around and making quick changes of direction, there's enough structure here, and over time, it doesn't overstretch. So as a whole, it's actually an improved variation of that original NikeSkin upper, which is really interesting. Also, something that's kind of weird, and maybe you can see this in the video, the raised spots in what is kind of a grid pattern honeycomb texturing seem to have a little bit of roughness to them. So even though this looks like an uncoated Flyknit upper, it does appear to have some kind of a coating, or at least some kind of a texturing on the high spots, which is really unusual, but it basically just provides enough grip so the ball isn't slick against the upper. Either way, the touch is fantastic. It's a little bit padded, but ultimately very thin, and because there's basically no structure to this upper, it moves very nicely with your foot, and in general, just feels incredible on the ball. It, of course, is partnered with a one-piece construction where the central part of the upper is filled in with a more traditional elasticated Flyknit material, as we've seen many times from Nike. Of course, a dual lace hole system as well, fully central lacing too, which I think works really well. They've left the lacing system a little bit higher up, so you're left with a very clean area here across the top of the toes/forefoot area, which I'm personally a fan of. That connects as you get towards the heel, where you can see the top lacing position is part of the heel structure, which is actually a more traditional synthetic material. It, of course, is backed by an internal plastic heel counter as well, and it just makes for a really clean transition between two obviously very different materials. But this part of the foot, the actual upper material itself, doesn't really matter all that much. And then as far as these little things are concerned, they don't have any grip to them. They're not rubberized or anything like that. It's kind of just a design element, but I have had quite a few people ask if that's actually some kind of performance tech. It's not, it's just there to look cool. As far as the heel liner is concerned, it's lined in a nice soft mesh material on either side, and then it utilizes a synthetic suede directly down the back. Nice extra padding as well, very, very comfortable. Big fan of how that feels. And then remove the insole and you'll find something a little bit weird. From the top side, it looks mostly normal, it just has a mesh liner on top, but you'll see those 8 circles right there running through the forefoot and toe box area, and then flip it around, you'll find that it's made from that ortholite material we see on a lot of Nike indoors, but you can see that those 8 holes are now cored out of the bottom. Now the reason why that's the case is if you look inside the boot with the insole removed, you can actually see there are these little kind of circular bulges in the forefoot that line up exactly where you have these holes on the underside of the insole. This is Nike's Touch Control 360 system. Nike Touch 360, sorry, I got that all mixed up. But basically these little internal kind of bumps are directly connected to these little pods that you have here on the bottom. Aside from that one's just kind of on its own. But basically the logic here is that you would press on these little bumps on the inside, and that directly connects to these kind of cored out pods that you have directly underneath your foot. I thought initially that this would be some kind of a traction system, but apparently it's there for the sake of touch, to get a better feel on the ball with the ball underneath your foot, which is a very common thing in a futsal or indoor type environment. Does it actually result in better feel for the ball? In my opinion, not really. It's honestly a feature that while it seems very significant, you honestly don't even notice it whatsoever. If you never removed the insole and didn't know it was there, it's honestly not something you would notice over any other indoor boot. So it's more of like a cool feature rather than something that's super effective. It is one of the major kind of technologies introduced on this particular boot. I don't think it's as important as the upper, but it is a cool piece of technology. Which brings us to the midsole and outsole, and it's in the name. This does feature a React foam cushioning setup for the entire midsole that's a little bit thicker towards the heel and then does kind of taper and get a lot thinner as you get to the forefoot. It's a good amount of cushioning considering how low profile the boot still feels, and it also maintains really good flexibility, which is often not the case when you get into indoor boots that have a little bit more kind of underfoot cushioning. Is it as low profile as I think some people would want? Maybe not, but in general, I really like how this feels. And this is kind of their replacement for Lunarlon cushioning that we used to see on their flagship Lunar Gato 2, which obviously this is kind of the indirect replacement for. You can see the outsole does feature a rubber lip going around the forefoot as well as the toe box area. You'll also see around the toe box, there is a little bit of a plastic lip as well for the sake of reinforcement and just general durability, which is not a bad thing whatsoever. But the outsole itself is a pretty standard traction pattern. I'm not in love with what they did in the heel here. It's kind of just broken up little lines, which I think clog with dust a little bit more easily than they should. But you can see through the forefoot, you have more of a kind of consistent pattern that kind of goes around, I guess, pods that you have through the forefoot area. And in general, the traction that you get is pretty decent. It's definitely an improvement over the Lunar Gato series. The quality of the rubber is also quite good. Obviously, if you're on a dusty court, you're gonna have to constantly wipe and it's gonna be a little bit slippery. But on a clean court, the traction is really good. And actually, in an outdoor environment, if you're playing on the street or something like that, obviously that's gonna be harder on the outsole. But in general, the traction on that type of surface is really good. Also something to note, this is the indoor version of the React Gato, and that is the only version of the React Gato as of right now, and probably for the rest of its lifespan, there will not be a turf variation of this boot. As far as weight is concerned, these are on par with a lot of other high-end indoors, but certainly not the lightest ones that you can buy. So I'm gonna weigh them for you in real time. Keep in mind that this pair is a size 10 US, and you can see that they weigh in at 9.6 ounces, the equivalent of 273 grams, which would make this, again, kind of on par with a lot of higher end indoor boots. it's kind of a trade-off. If you want a more durable rubber outsole, which this does have, and a little bit more significant cushioning, you're going to add a little bit of weight to the boot. So while these definitely don't feel weightless on your feet, they're far from feeling heavy. So as you can see, I've swapped out the stock blue laces for some neon yellow reflective SR4U replacement laces, which accent really nicely with, of course, the neon yellow bits you have on the upper. Also a great way of changing up the style of your boots in a very inexpensive way. If you're interested in some laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. There'll be a little pop-up on screen as well as a link down below in the description. So if you're interested in some, be sure to go ahead and check that out. On feet, the React Gato has to be the most comfortable pair of indoors I have personally ever worn. I know I compared this Flyknit upper to the NikeSkin upper on the Hypervenom Phantom 1, but honestly, this feels better than that. It is so flexible, it's so soft, it moves with your foot in every direction. The flexible outsole definitely helps with that as well, and legitimately requires no break-in time whatsoever. You slide these on and they're immediately comfortable. The lockdown provided by the lacing system is really good. The heel construction is pretty standard, so the heel lockdown is also really nice. I'm not gonna go and say that this is the most responsive indoor boot that you can buy, because obviously when you have a super soft upper like this, you're giving up some kind of structure. But in terms of how comfortable it feels and how flexible it is, they are remarkably responsive. So no major complaints from me there in that department. Underfoot cushioning because of the React foam is also really good, and you still feel nice and low to the ground. They definitely don't feel bulky underfoot or anything like that. As far as width is concerned, because the upper is so soft and flexible, these will fit pretty much everybody and they adjust to your feet instantaneously. No break-in time required. Definitely a boot that will fit absolutely everyone. If you're looking for that mercurial squeeze your foot sensation, these don't necessarily provide that, but if you're just after pure comfort, these are pretty hard to be mad at. And as far as sizing is concerned, a lot of you guys might have heard me mention that these are a size 10, which is a half size bigger than my usual size 9.5 US. And the reason why I went up a half size, even though in my previous review, I did mention that these do run true to size, I still think that, but the issue that I was having with those long term, because of this little plastic lip at the tip of the toe, my foot, my second toe is actually a little bit longer than my big toe, and I was finding that my second toe was kind of jamming up against that plastic piece at the front, and going up half a size seems to have relieved that issue for me. Either way, it's gonna depend on the shape of your feet. If you like that super tight fit, going true to size is probably the way to go. Otherwise, just be aware of that plastic lip, and if you think it's going to be an issue for you, going up half a size wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea. If you've watched up until this point, it's no surprise I really like these, but what I'm really hoping from this particular boot, specifically the technology of this Flyknit upper, is that we get this introduced on a studded pair of football boots. And what I'm hoping is going to happen is that the next Hypervenom Phantom, which we have seen leaked images of, pros using them and training, and given the minor texturing that you can make out from the pictures, I'm really hoping that that boot, which is kind of a successor to the original Hypervenom Phantom 1, because Phantom turned into Phantom Venom, I'm really hoping we get something like this and ultimately end up with a football boot that is kind of a new and improved variation of that iconic and classic Nike Hypervenom Phantom 1. We'll see what happens with that, but in the meantime, if you want something that feels as much like that original Hypervenom as possible in indoor form, even as a casual wear pair of indoors, because I think that these are really comfortable and actually pretty cool looking as well, I would highly recommend the React Gato. Anyways guys, that's it for my review. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you're interested in a pair of these for yourself in this colorway or any of the other colorways that are currently available, first link down below, that's going to take you to the review page on my website, where you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes to pick these up below the normal $140 retail price. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to get an answer out to you. If you aren't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. You can find all my social media information linked down below in the description as well. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.